Good afternoon, FMC. This is Jameka Gardner once again. Today is Wednesday, February the 8th, and we will continue to finish the Body Keep Score Part 2. We will talk about anger as a second emotion and Erickson's stages of development today. An outline of just what we're doing is, once again, finishing up the trauma in the brain. The Body Keep Score, of course, by Dr. Bessel. We'll move into Erickson's stages of development. We'll talk about anger as a second emotion and the conclusion for today. So today we look at some attachment styles. You have a secure attachment, you have an anxious ambivalent attachment, you have an avoidant attachment, and disorganized attachment. A secure attachment style signifies that a warming, loving bond between the parent and the child. The child feels loved and cared for and develops the ability to form healthy relationships with those around them. These children with secure attachment styles are active and they demonstrate confidence in their interactions with others. Those who develop secure attachment styles in childhood are likely to carry this healthy way of bonding into adulthood and have no problem with building long-term relationships without fear of abandonment. And so we're talking about a little bit about this is before we start and get into the Body Keep Score, we're also talking about children and trauma today. And a lot starts from when we are born. At the end of this segment, when we move into section 3, you're going to learn about Erickson's stages of development and why it's important to start off with your children day one, not when they get 4 years old and people think that we don't know or the child doesn't know something. It starts from day one. And so these are some attachment styles that we'll talk about. And while I'm talking about these attachments, please feel free to comment anything that you need to comment, send messages. Remember to do that as well privately within my inbox on Facebook or sending them to Reverend Perry. He can definitely get those to me as well so that I can answer questions in between. So once again, this is secure attachment, and this is the first one that a lot of parents do have with children, but you will see later on that a lot of different attachment styles, you'll notice some of these as teachers, definitely, you will notice whether or not the child had a secure attachment. You will find those kids in your class who are hard to deal with, and you'll see some different things when it comes to attachment disorders. The anxious ambivalent attachment, feeling but not dealing. These children tend to disturb caregivers or distrust caregivers, and this insecurity often means that their environment is explored rather than excitement. So it's more with them, it's a wishy-washy thing. It's like one day they're this, one day there's that, and that's something that you'll see often as well. They consistently seek approval from their caregivers and continually observe their surroundings for fear of being abandoned. So it's a look around, and you'll see this in daycares, especially when they kind of look around and they don't really know who to trust. And this is more of an anxious, like it states, you're feeling all of these things, but you're not dealing with what's going on in life. It says those who develop under the anxious ambivalent attachment style tends to carry what they have learned into adulthood and very often feel unloved by their partners, whilst finding it difficult to express love and connection within themselves and the love and expression of others. People who develop attachment under this style are usually emotionally dependent in adulthood. And so you'll notice kids who are the anxious ambivalent or always asking, do you think this is right? Or do you think this is okay? Or that's right? You'll hear little kids do that. But the older you get into the adulthood, you will ask yourself plenty of times questions or others to reassure your love and support from someone or even in your relationship. So this is the person who deals with the anxious ambivalent attachment disorder, which carries on just like the secure attachment within your life. Avoidant attachment, dealing but not feeling. So once again, the ambivalent, which is the anxious ambivalent, ambivalent. You are feeling but not dealing. But with the avoidant attachment, you're dealing with it, but you're not feeling. So children who have developed under the avoidant style have learned to accept that their emotional needs are likely to remain unmet and continue to grow up feeling unloved and insignificant. They often struggle with expressing their feelings and find it hard for understanding emotions in adulthood. They tend to avoid intimate relationships. These are the people that you run into, and they have low self-esteem sometimes. But this is the parent that didn't really pay their children any attention. And it's kind of as if the parent took the time to console, we see that as secure attachment, but the ones who didn't are the ones more likely to avoid intimate relationships because they're not understanding the feelings. They don't know the difference between this or that. So if you're saying my feelings are hurt, feelings of hurt and anger don't know how to distinguish the two. And in this, you will learn that anger is a secondary emotion. It's not a first emotion. As well, you'll notice that anger comes second. Something always comes before anger. Disorganized attachment. Disorganized attachment is a combination of avoidant and anxious attachment. And the children that fit into this group often display intense anger and rage. These are the ones that you see with oppositional defiant disorder, conduct disorder, DMDD, which is a mood disorder as well. You find these kids or these children in the daycare where everything is mine, or they're throwing things, or they don't have a problem with hurting someone else. They may break toys and behave in other violent ways, or volatile ways. They also have difficult in relationships with caregivers, and see adults as equal and not above them. Children develop under the disorganized attachment style tend to avoid intimate relationships as adults and can very easily explode and have a difficult time controlling their emotions. Disorganized infants are either aggressive or spaced out and disengaged. So those kids and those babies that you see who are aggressive in what they do, or they seem to be spaced out where it's just a stare, they're not playing, they're not learning the necessary steps or needs in infancy up until childhood, then you'll notice those things. And definitely it's not always a neurological aspect of things. Sometimes it's a mental disorder of a disorganized attachment. Attachments are very important, and they show from the day you were born up until those times, those early childhood times, that your brain is working, and definitely these attachments are forming before you're even 4 years old. So this is why it's important to start young and not when you think the child will remember certain things. So, quick question is, what is your attachment style from your parents? I hope that as I went through this, you thought about, wow, this is me. Small disclosure for me, I have two separate styles due to the upbringing of my parents. And sometimes we will have those two separate things, which it may not be hard for you to deal with one thing or another when you have two attachment styles. One of my attachment styles is secure. And so when you look back over these, even when you replay it and you just want to know your attachment styles, or you want to doing that in your home, I challenge you to find, your attachment styles and your children's attachment styles. So trauma in children, remember the body keeps score. Those attachment styles are talked about in here, but I went into detailed a little bit more in the first beginning of this segment. So attachment and attunement. With secure basis, children whose parents are reliable sources of comfort and strength have a lifetime advantage, a kind of buffer against the worst that fate can hand them. Over decades, 5 decades now, research has firmly established that having a safe haven promotes self-reliance and instills a sense of sympathy and helpfulness to others in distress. And so it talks about this attachment, but you also have to be in tune. So attunement, but in tune with your feelings, your emotions, and who you are as a person in order to provide a secure attachment. And so this is what this part of the book is also explaining. Children become attached to whoever functions as their primary caregiver. But the nature of the attachment, whether it's secure or unsecure, makes a huge difference over the course of the child's life. Secure attachments develop when the caregiver includes emotional attunement. Attunement starts at the most subtle physical levels of interactions between babies and their caretakers, and it gives babies the feeling of being met and understood. So trauma in children, the body keeps score again is what we're still on. These are some tests that we use to inquire about trauma. The traumatic antecedent questionnaire is a scale that measures exposure to traumatic events across 4 age periods. And you have ACE, which is ACE, which is the adverse childhood experience. It reveals that the traumatic life experiences during childhood and adolescence are far more common than expected. I challenge each of you to go look up the ACE. Take the quiz. It's online. It's free. Take it to see if you have the adverse childhood experience. It's amazing to find out some of that information, but it also brings back trauma within yourself. But if you would like to do those things, if you would like to do the ACE and then send it to me so that we can talk about your score, that's fine too as well. But it definitely is self-explanatory and it shows you online how to do it. But I've taken both of these and they are amazing tools to use for children. Some additional information to go along with the book is abused kids are often very sensitive to changes in faces, but they tend to respond to them as threats rather than cues for staying in sync. This is why abused children are so easily to become defensive or scared. When you look back at the disorganized child or the disengaged child or the anxious ambivalent child who thinks, hey, is this right? Am I doing this right? Hopefully I'm doing this right. Those are the ones who have anxiety and are anxious a lot. Those are the children who sometimes are abused, but definitely the disorganized children or the disengaged children are the ones who, if you look at a child and you're trying to tell them to stop, instead of them seeing, oh, okay, let me get back on point, the child doesn't see that. It sees, oh, fear and threat, I have to react. So fear, threat, react. The need for attachment will be found later in ways of bonding through illnesses, lawsuits, or family feuds. And what that means is when we don't have that attachment secured, or one of those where we can work towards security in an attachment, things such as illnesses in the body. So if we don't take the time to deal with what's going on, what happens to our bodies is we get all these elements that are illnesses and things that we're like, well, where did this come from? This is not hereditary. This didn't come biologically. And you will find that a lot of things that we keep, which are traumatic, within our bodies, it takes over our body. Our body is stressing day in and day out when you don't take the time to deal with what has hurt you. Children will go almost any length to feel seen and connected. What it's talking about with these abused children is when they have been given that attachment style, children who act out are the ones that want to be seen and connect in that way. So for them, acting out and getting in trouble in school is not a big deal. I'm getting the attention that I want. It may not be good intentions, but they can't process whether that's a good intention or a bad intention. So I know that we take the time to say, well, they know right from wrong. And yes, we do. But because they're getting this attention and didn't have a secure base or attachment, this is what the outcome is. So it says if your caregivers ignore your needs or resent your very existence, you learn to anticipate rejection and withdrawal. This is a lot of people today, where when we were ignored as children, the needs that needed to be met weren't met. Then you learn to grow up to accept rejection and withdrawal immediately. You're anticipating rejection and withdrawal. And I see a lot of this in today's children, but also many adults where they had that attachment style and their parents rejected them, or somebody that cared for them rejected them. And so now all they anticipate is rejection and withdrawal. Remember before we talked about an imagination. Once your imagination is taken away from you, this is what you expect as well. You don't have a mind that goes back to be optimistic. You have a mind that becomes pessimistic. And so it says you cope as well as you can by blocking out your mother's hostility or neglect and act as if she doesn't matter, but your body is likely to remain in the state of high alert, prepared to ward off blows, deprivation, or abandonment. So disassociation means simultaneously knowing and not knowing. So disassociation from this whole entire thing as an abused child, once again, is from knowing and not knowing what's about to happen. All right. So a little bit about that. This we're getting into the last part of this book before the next segment, and it's treatment exposure therapy, EMDR, letting go of your past. This is the eye movement desensitization reprocessing, which is amazing. I encourage you to go online and watch this as well. If we had more time, trust me, I probably would be talking for 2 hours. It's a psychotherapy treatment that was originally designed to alleviate the distress associated with traumatic memories. Adaptive information processing models posits the EMDR therapy facilitates an assessing and processing of the traumatic experience and other adverse life experiences to bring these in an adaptive resolution. So after successful treatment of EMDR therapy, affective distress is relieved, negative beliefs are reformulated, and psychological arousals is reduced. I'm getting tongue-tied tonight. But definitely, I would encourage you to please go look this up. I get excited about stuff like this because it allows you to see the things that has taken place in your life and how to deal with them. EMDR does help with anxiety as well, but definitely traumatic experiences. And I encourage those who have never been to therapy before to try it at least once. Definitely look up therapists. I know I had a question last week about therapists and dealing with anxiety. And I know a few within the Augusta area, but a lot of these are colleagues where we are in our process of reaching that 3rd year to get our full licensure. But I don't mind looking these up. I don't mind trying to help you find somebody who can help you get to that point in life. Therapy is amazing. And so that's definitely something in the book that it talks about, as well as the EMDR of letting the past go. And it's definitely watch it on YouTube. You can type in this type of therapy or treatment exposure therapy, and you'll definitely see this as well. Section 2. Section 2 is what is anger. I never forget starting graduate school, we were asked, when is the last time we got angry? And my professor, she was talking about it, and she stated that she hasn't been angry in years. And I'm like, there's no way possible. Well, I then understood what she meant. And these next things that I'm going to show you is 4 steps or 4 things that occur before we get angry. Anger is a secondary emotion, meaning that there's a primary emotion that starts first. And that primary emotion definitely is one of these 4 things. And then we become angry when we can't take care of that first emotion. Anger as a second emotion. And so my favorite professor of all times is Dr. Meredith Rausch. She's an assistant professor at Augusta University. And she introduced this concept to me. If you think that counseling is your way and your purpose, I highly recommend Augusta University. She allowed me to express myself in ways that I thought I couldn't. She allowed me to go back and forgive people who I had never taken the time to think about forgiving, and letting go of past hurt and trauma. And so I applaud her many times, not just only her, but my other professors that are there too, Dr. Richard Diener, as well. I had him, and they were just amazing. And I tell you that if you want to transform your life into something different, and this is your way to go, I hands down Augusta University. But before anger comes, there's 4 concepts that she told me, and that's emotional/physical hurt, fear, guilt, worthlessness, and helplessness. Those are the 4 concepts. Once again, emotional, physical, hurt, fear, guilt, worthlessness, helplessness. Emotional/physical pain is someone that has hurt your feelings by saying something to you, or someone physically putting their hands on you, fighting with someone. The physical pain of dealing with something, the emotional pain of dealing with something leads you to anger. So it's either you're hurt that someone did something to you. You're hurt because of the fight you just had this morning and had to call authorities because of an incident or a situation which may make you angry. The fear of losing something or someone, an example of hurting someone's feelings, even though you know it's the right thing to do or say, and leaving an abusive relationship. So the fear of, well, if I do this, I might lose this, or I may be alone, so I may not have anybody. So it's the fear that gets us to anger next if we can't control that fearful emotion. Guilt. I made it a little funny this time, and it says, I left the house at 7:30 knowing I had to be to work at 8. Everyone is going slow. OMG, now the police is pulling me over. Now, guilt can transform into anger as well. Why? Because you were guilty enough to know that it takes you an hour maybe to get to work, but you left 30 minutes before time. There's construction going on. You pass by thinking you're flying past the wait station on I-20, and here comes the police, and they're pulling you over, telling you that you're going too fast, and now here you are even later. Guilt can transpire into anger if we don't take care of that emotion first. Worthlessness or helplessness is definitely one that a lot of people choose between that and emotional hurt, and it's, I'm not good enough. So seeing a parent get beat by someone as a child, watching someone that is dying or suffering, being sexually abused in some shape, form, or fashion, worthlessness and helplessness is definitely something I have heard multiple times. Fear and guilt were second in line, but definitely worthlessness, helplessness, emotional hurt, physical hurt. And section 3, we're going to talk about Erikson's stages of development. Erikson's stages of development has 8 different stages. The first stage is trust and mistrust. And this is from infancy to birth to 18 months. So once again, infancy from birth to 18 months. So mind you, we're thinking, oh, kids don't really remember things. This starts once again from infancy from birth to 18 months. It's trust versus mistrust. Stage 2 is autonomy versus shame and doubt. This is for toddlers years 18 months to 3 years old. Stage 3 is an initiative versus guilt. Preschool years, and this is from 3 to 5. And stage 4 is industry versus inferiority. Middle school ages 6 to 11. Stage 5 is identity versus confusion, and these are 10 years. The teen years from 12 to 18. Stage 6 is intimacy versus isolation. Young adult years from 18 to 40. Stage 7, okay, I'm sorry, my screen went out for just a second, but stage 7 is our middle age between 40 and 65, and stage 8 is our older adults from 65 to death. Here as well, you see a whole description. I love these, of the different, I love seeing pictures. So pictographs, anything like that, I love it. I love to see things in front of me. So Eric Erikson was born in 1902 to 1994, and he was a 20th century psychologist who developed the theory of psychosocial development and concepts of identity crisis. Once again, here's this. And when I was I can't say it, as generativity, and is in stagnation is definitely something I always had an issue with because I was trying to say it and it didn't want to come out. And integrity versus despair at the bottom. So stage 1 for trust versus mistrust. Infancy from birth to 18 months, once again, is the most fundamental stage of life. At this point in development, the child is utterly dependable upon the adult's caregivers for everything they need to survive, including food, love, warmth, safety, nurturing. If a caregiver fails to provide adequate care and love, the child will come to feel that they cannot trust or depend upon adults in their life. So mind you, in the body keep score, once again, that goes with the secure attachment. If this is not shown, then this is what happens. And so that's stage 1. Stage 1 continuation is if the child successfully develops trust, the child will feel safe and secure in the world. Caregivers who are inconsistent, emotionally unavailable, or rejecting contributes to the feelings of mistrust in the children under their care. Failure to develop trust will result in fear and a belief that the world is inconsistent and unpredictable. During the first stage of psychosocial development, children develop a sense of trust when caregivers provide reliability, care, and affection. A lack of this will lead to mistrust. So mind you, once again, we move it into the ambivalent stage where mistrust comes to a place where when we don't have that first bit of stage 1. Stage 1 is critical because it's as soon as the baby is born. Stage 2 is the role of independence. And so perform basic actions on their own and making simple decisions about what they prefer. By allowing kids to make choices and gain control, parents and caregivers can help children develop a sense of autonomy. Potty training happens in this toddler to 18 months to 3 years old. And Erikson believed that learning to control one's bodily fluids lead to a feeling of control, a sense of independency. Other important events, including gaining more control over food choices, toy preferences, and clothing selection. So you will see that more often when you know that your child is doing this of the role of independency. You'll see the toddler up to 18 months, so that's 3 years old, choosing their clothes. Maybe not the best of clothing. They may have their outside clothing, or they may have clothes that don't match. But this is something that they like to do, and this helps with autonomy, with knowing yourself. And then if that doesn't work, if you don't gain the autonomy, here you are with shame and doubt. Children who struggle and who are ashamed for their accidents may be left without a sense of personal control. Success during this stage of psychosocial development leads to feelings of autonomy. Failure results in feelings of shame and doubt. Children who successfully complete this stage feel secure and confident, while those who do not are left with a sense of inadequacy and self-doubt. Erikson believed that achieving a balance between autonomy and shame and doubt would lead to will, which is the belief that children can act with intention and within reasonable limits as well. Stage 3, this is your preschool years from 3 to 5. Children begin to assert their powers and control over the world through directing play and other social interactions. Children who are successful at this stage feel capable and able to lead others. Those who fail to acquire these skills are left with a sense of guilt, self-doubt, and lack of the initiative. The need to begin exerting control and power over the environment, and success in this stage leads to a sense of purpose. Children who try to exert too much power experiences disapproval, resulting in a sense of guilt. When an ideal balance of individual initiative and willingness to work with others is achieved, the ego quality known as purpose emerges. So think about it. Purpose is already emerging from 3 to 5 years old. So yes, we are human beings that are starting from day one of being born, and here we are to 5, already getting a sense of purpose. Level 4. Stage 4 is industry and inferiority. And this is your middle school ages once again. And it says, through social interaction, children begin to develop a sense of pride, of accomplishments, and ability. Children need to cope with their new social academic demands. Success leads to a sense of competency, while failure results in feelings of inferiority. Children who are encouraged and commended by parents and teachers develop a feeling of competency and a belief in their skills. Those who receive little or no encouragement from parents, teachers, or peers will doubt their abilities to be successful or to become successful. Successfully finding a balance at this stage of psychosocial development leads to strength known as competency, in which children develop a belief in their abilities to handle tasks that are set before them. Stage 5, this is your teen years, so my 12 to 18-year-olds, and most of the time they're my favorite. This stage plays an essential role in developing a sense of personal identity, which will continue to influence behavior and development for the rest of the person's life. Teens need to develop a sense of self and personal identity. Success leads to an ability to stay true to yourself, while failure leads to roles of confusion and weak sense of self. During adolescence, children explore their independence and develop a sense of self. Those who receive proper encouragement and reinforcement through personal exploration will emerge from this stage with a strong sense of self and feelings of independence and control. Those who remain unsure of their beliefs and desires will feel insecure and confused about themselves in the future. This is the continuation of stage 5, identity. They're referring to all beliefs. When they stated identity in the previous slide, they are referring to all beliefs, ideas, values that help shape and guide a person's behavior. Completing this stage successfully leads to fidelity, which Erickson described as the ability to live by society standards and expectations. So ego identity is a conscious sense of self that we develop through social interaction and become a central focus in the identity versus confusion stage of psychosocial development. Stage 5 again. Ego identity consistently change due to new experiences and information we acquire and our daily interactions with others. As we have new experiences, we also take on challenges that can help or hinder the development of identity. Our personal identity gives each of us an integrated and cohesive sense of self that endures through our lives. Our sense of personal identity is shaped by our experiences and our interactions with others, and it is the identity that helps guide our actions, our beliefs, and behaviors as we age. Stage 6, this is from 18 to 40. Young adults need to form intimate, loving relationships with other people. Success leads to strong relationships, while failure results in loneliness and isolation. This stage covers the period of early adulthood when people are exploring personal relationships. It is vital that people develop close, committed relationships with other people. Those who are successful at this step will form relationships that are enduring and secure. Studies have demonstrated that those with a poor sense of self tend to be less committed in relationships and are more likely to struggle with emotional isolation, loneliness, and depression. Successful resolutions of this stage results in virtue known as love. It is marked by the ability to form lasting, meaningful relationships with other people. Stage 7. This is ages 40 to 65. It says adults need to create or nurture things that will outlast them, often by having children or creating a positive change that benefits other people. Success leads to feelings of usefulness and accomplishments, while failures result in shallow involvement in the world. During adulthood, we continue to build our lives focusing on our career and family. Those who are successful during this phase will feel that they are contributing to the world by being active in their home and their community. Stage 7, continuation. Those who fail to attain this skill will feel unproductive and uninvolved in the world. Care is the virtue achieved when this stage is handled successfully. Being proud of your accomplishments, watching your children grow into adults, and developing a sense of unity with your life partner are the important accomplishments of this stage. Stage 8. So these are our older adulthoods, and this is from 65 until death. At this moment, we're reflecting back on life. At this point in development, people look back on their events in their lives and determine if they are happy with their life that they lived or regret the things that they did or didn't do. Older adults need to look back on their lives and feel a sense of fulfillment. Success at this stage leads to feelings of wisdom, while failure results in regret, bitterness, and despair. Those who feel proud of their accomplishments will feel a sense of integrity. Successfully completing this phase makes looking back with few regrets and a general feeling of satisfaction. These individuals will obtain wisdom even when confronting death. So with Erickson, we do give the good and the bad of what they feel, and the criticism about this psychological or psychological theory is one major weakness of this psychosocial theory is that the exact mechanisms for resolving conflict and moving from one stage to the next are not well described or developed, and the theory fails to detail exactly what type of experiences are necessary at each stage in order to successfully resolve the conflict and move to the next stage. And this is where we, as myself, as a therapist or a counselor, can help. And that's what it's saying, is telling you that even in those stages, when you get to a point, and that's where the attachments come into play again, where when we have a secure attachment, we can move from one part of what we're going through to the next section. So stage 1 can turn into stage 2 successfully when we are able to resolve conflict, when we are able to resolve in ourselves, when we are able to take care of our needs that are necessary, then these are the things that fall in line. And so he's telling you that if you are successful in those things, this is what you do. Once again, First Mount Carmel, I thank you very much. I get excited when I talk about things like this. So I stuttered a lot today. But those are things that we do when you think about what you've done today. And when I get excited about things, you run over trying to get it done. So I appreciate each of you who have watched this, and it's good to tell people your mistakes sometimes. That's something that we had to do, is to take accountability in things that we know. And it's like, whoa, I missed a word here, I missed a word there. But accountability is definitely something that we fail to do sometimes. I appreciate each of you for coming on here and watching each Wednesday night. Well, the first time tonight and also the next 2 Wednesdays. I am grateful for the opportunity to share with you some of the things that I do each and every day. And I look forward to next week. Next week is definitely going to be a good one as well. We're moving into grief and also what we do for children and adults. And any other additional information will come on the 4th section. Once again, I thank you so much for this opportunity. I hope that I was able to bless you in a way today. Thank you. Have a good one.